very first guest on Indie Authors, so this is a huge thing. Yay! And so I really thank you for the time and the just that you've volunteered your time to be part of this project. So it's really, really appreciated. So you're a stay-at-home mom of a teenager and a toddler, so you must be very busy. And you have created a compelling tale that I finished last night, filled with twists and turns that hook you from the very beginning. That's my experience. So, and this tale is it pronounced Piquette Grove?
Picket.
Piquette.
Kind of like picket fence.
Right. Okay. And so the blurb from the back, or what's on Amazon, is do monsters exist in our world? Piquette Grove is a quiet, peaceful town with a dark secret. Set on a strict curfew, residents of the small town must stay locked inside their homes after dusk. When the factory whistle blows, things come out of the woods. Chloe Lewis takes precautions as she prepares to run away, but things don't go as planned. She soon learns that the ones that stalk the town at night are not what they seem, and neither is Piquette Grove. So, and you ask the audience to join you in exploring the strange town and all of its secrets. And those secrets kept me going. Like I stayed up till 4, actually.
Wow.
To finish it, because I'm like, what else is going to come out? So I really enjoyed it, I have to say. Where shall we start? Oh, the other thing that I wanted to point out was, and we had talked about this in our initial conversation, was the Dear Readers trigger warning, which I thought was really, really lovely to add. And so I'm gonna read it in case anybody wants to know before the interview goes, but we won't really be talking necessarily about the content because I don't want to give any spoilers away. But you do write, this book contains heavy use of foul language, drug use, overdose, sexual situations, and some violence. It is meant for mature audiences. I do understand, and this is you saying, I do understand that this may not be suitable for all readers, and I am placing the content warning so that no one unintentionally reads anything that may be harmful to their mental health or their recovery. These are not the main themes of the story, yet they are prevalent. Thank you. So I thought, that's really wonderful. And it set the tone of a really, you got that out in the very beginning. And so it just set a nice feeling, if you will, for the reader, I find. And I just had so much fun reading this. So I wanted to start with you and how it came to you. So you explained it came to you in a dream. So can you expand on that a little bit?
It was actually just a weird dream that I was in that town, and then it just kind of played out a little bit. And I'm pretty sure I had just watched The Village, so it kind of played off that a little bit, but I woke up and decided to write out kind of the basic.
Yeah, and it did have that villagey, and you had also compared it to Wayward Pines, which is another great series. And I also felt that, when I was reading it. And it's funny because I had watched, on YouTube, a documentary on these villages that do in fact exist, these covert villages where people, are in scientific experiments and things like that. So, and that always had already fascinated me. So it was great to see that come to life. So you had started writing it a couple years ago, but then you had a series of starts and stops, correct?
Yes.
So what kept you going?
Well, it was my husband really that was like, well, after the pandemic, I ended up staying home, being a stay-at-home mom, and I had a toddler, and I was homeschooling my older daughter, and he was like, well, if you're home, then you can finally finish working on this book, because I had started it when, right around the time that I had met him, and he loved hearing about it, and then I just stopped. So yeah, he really kind of talked me into getting back to it.
That's fantastic. So you said it took about 14 months and that you had 2 different rewrites.
Yes.
Correct? So there were 3 different versions.
Yes.
So what made you feel that this was the one that would go out to the world?
I personally prefer the second rewrite.
Interesting.
But the some of what's in the final draft was supposed to be for a sequel, but I ended up combining it all for the final rewrite,
Yeah.
instead of doing a sequel.
That's interesting because I was wondering as we were getting towards the end, and I'm not going to give away anything, but I felt like, I'm wondering if there will be something more. Like
Yeah,
I feel like there should be something coming, maybe.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
open-ended to where I could go off the epilogue or I can just leave it. But
Smart move, right? Don't paint yourself into a corner, they say.
right.
So it was really moody when it first started. There was a definite atmosphere, and it almost reminded me of like Arkham Asylum. Like I got that sort of thing,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, in the very
Okay.
beginning, and then you find out what's and
Yeah.
no spoiler alerts. But yeah, there was a definite strong mood or atmosphere that it started
Yeah.
off with, and what kept me going was that, like I said, there's so many revelations throughout, and when you think,
Yeah.
okay, what's the next? What could possibly
Yeah.
happen next? Like I really love that, and so you've had a really excellent response, and so what in terms of like what that looks like for you. What kind of responses have you received?
Um, I think the best response I got was at my book release. There was a girl that I had never met, and I was explaining the book, and I gave her a couple spoilers, and she was so excited that she hugged me.
Oh,
I
that's so
was
nice,
like,
huh?
okay, that's awesome.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Now, what was when you were writing, what was the intended audience? And did it turn out to be the audience that is now reading it?
Um, when I originally wrote it, the audience I had in mind was just me.
Right.
Like I just wrote it because I wanted to read it and I wanted to expand on that dream, but I didn't really have much of a plan for the audience. I just knew with uh with the romantic subplot it would be a lot of females and like I don't really want to say like middle-aged, but new adult somewhere around there.
Yeah. It other than one scene,
Well,
which
yeah.
was a bit
Yeah.
spicy. I was
A
like,
bit.
ooh,
A bit.
what's happening? Um, I really got the impression that it could go either as a like a YA kind of
Yeah.
novel, or like you said, into a little bit of romance, and
Yeah.
for an older audience, like when I got to that part, which again we shan't speak of.
But
um
there's so many aspects that it can fit into so many subgenres and so many
yeah,
different niches.
yep.
It's I don't know. I
And
think different people would enjoy it for different reasons.
right, yeah, exactly. And I mean, I've been reading a couple other YA novels lately, and they're getting spicier than when I was a young
Yeah.
person. So let's talk a little bit about your background. So you said you're a big reader, you love books.
Yes.
Um, what is your favorite genre to read, or are you like a dabbler in everything?
I read a lot of different things, but mostly I'm hooked on Dean Koontz and
Mm,
Stephen King.
yeah,
So the supernatural suspense kind of just falls into that.
right. Yeah, no, me too. Big fan.
Oh yeah.
Big fan. Yeah. And you're self-taught, which is amazing. So you just have this natural talent of
Yes.
storytelling. So that's really great. But you did used to write poetry and short stories. So do you think that you would ever go back to or work on a project that's a short story based? Because I know you released one just as a sort of
Yes.
icebreaker on
Yeah.
what was it? Where did you release it?
KDP.
Yeah, KDP. Um and then you did this full novel. But do you think you would ever work on something poetry based or short story based again?
Possibly. Yeah. I kind of like the short stories because you can just kind of pump them out and it doesn't take very long.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like the full length novel a lot better because I don't know, you can do more with them.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I guess if I've been seeing a lot of indie authors that have been putting out like little novellas as their
Yes.
teasers, hooking
Yes.
the audience that way, and then following up with a series or standalone novels after. And I think that is probably a really great sort of way to get people into you because it's a fast read, like a little
Yes.
novella or a short story, and then you can be like, well, here's the rest of my work, so
Yeah.
enjoy. Um, so your writing technique and or practice. Do you want to go into that a little bit to
Well, there's some people that are pantsers
Mhm.
and they just kind of write by the seat of their pants and have no plan. It just story idea and you write it. And then there's people that are plotters that have a full outline and know exactly how to get from point A to point B. But I'm more of what we call a plotzer.
Okay.
I have a general idea and then the story just eventually takes on a mind of its own and takes off. So
Yeah. Okay. So you don't necessarily have a whole like one of those big walls that's got a
yeah,
thousand
no,
stickies on it.
definitely not.
Yeah. And do you find that you are able to like when you're in that mode, when you're sort of just flying by the seat of your pants, do you
Yeah.
find that you have to go back and reread certain things, or do you just plow ahead, start to finish? What do you do?
Um, I went through probably 20 chapters just flying through, going through, and then I would go back and fix the plot holes that I created.
Hmm.
But there's some things that just like worked out. Um, I don't really want to give any spoilers. The death at the beginning, how you find out later it was intentional. That was not planned. That was an
Isn't that
accident.
amazing?
There was an accident when I first started writing it. So it just it kind of developed on its own. And sometimes characters, if you write them a certain way, they do develop a personality. And it's hard because you'll have an idea like, okay, I want this character to do this. And as their character development continues, that character will not do that.
Mm.
And you just have to work around that.
I have to admit, I have a little bit of a crush on Mr. L. Like I thought he was
Oh, yeah.
so fantastic, and I was rooting for him all the way through because I just thought he is a great character, so down to
Yes.
earth, so relatable, so kind, so real. He just felt so real. So well done, you on
Thank
that.
you.
That was so great.
Thank you.
And it was a lovely family that the story revolves around. You just created this really interesting family dynamic, which again we won't go into.
Yeah.
The only thing I kind of I'm hoping for, if there is a second, is that we learn more about what happens with the brother.
Yes.
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 So yeah, then that's all we're gonna say. You have to read the book to,
Oh yeah.
to understand what we're talking about. Um, and this is another fact that was super interesting, that you wrote most of it on the notepad in your phone
Yes.
while you were mothering,
Breastfeeding. Yep.
essentially, yeah, and cleaning and doing all sorts of things. So that really goes to show that if you want to do something, you're going to find a way to do it. And that was a big
Perseverance.
message, yeah, that you had. Just like do it. You want to do it, you do it.
Yep.
So did that cause any problems along the way, like with typing with your thumbs and or
Um,
frustrations for you?
it was a little frustrating, but once I kind of got into a rhythm, it actually helped me a lot because when I would do it on my phone and then I would send it to the computer, as I was retyping it onto my master document, I was editing as I was going.
So
So
efficiency.
yeah, it cut down a lot of my editing time.
Wow, that's great. You wouldn't think, right? But
Right.
in this day
Yeah.
and age, it's so much technology that's so helpful.
Yes.
So that's amazing. Coming to editing now. So you just edited the whole thing yourself. I can't remember if you said that you uh had like beta readers and that sort of thing to just pick
Yeah.
up. Okay.
Yeah,
And
I
so
had
how was
a few of my friends that read it along as I was writing and they'd point things out or send me a screenshot and circle stuff. So that was really helpful.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, that's another thing that's a theme, is that you have to have a village to help you.
Yes.
Yeah, because you get so close to the work that you don't see
Yeah, fresh
necessarily.
eyes help
Yep,
so much.
exactly. And that feedback. So not only did they help you with picking up on if there were errors, but they also provided some feedback, correct?
Yes.
And so how was that, receiving feedback on what's your essentially another baby, right? And
Yeah,
having to implement it. How did you first of all, did you find that the feedback was helpful?
it was. And it was also helpful when you start to kind of slack off a little bit and then you have your friends messaging you like, what's Jason doing? Like, I need to know what happens next. So I didn't really have a choice. I had to keep going.
Right. That's yeah, good motivation. And did you find that based on their feedback, you maybe developed new parts that you hadn't thought of
Yes.
before? Oh, okay.
Yes.
So interesting. So can you talk about any of them without giving away too much?
Um, well, my best friend Alicia, she she would tell me like, okay, this doesn't make sense. This person wouldn't do that because it contradicts something that they did in the last chapter. And she was like helping me point out things, or like if I had an idea like, okay, this could go this way or this way, and I would type out both and send them to her. And she'd be
Okay.
like, okay, this one makes more sense.
This quote was fantastic that you had mentioned to me previously. If there's a book you want to read and can't find it, write it. So was
Yes.
that your invention, or did you hear it somewhere else? I can't remember.
No, that was I've read it and seen it multiple places. I think I sent you, if
Oh
you
yeah,
have your phone on you, the two quotes that I used with their names under them.
that's right. Hold on. Toni Morrison. Oh yeah. So you can't take credit. She's pretty
No,
famous.
I definitely cannot.
Yeah, but it's true, right? Like if you
Yes.
don't have a book, if you don't see a book out there that you like, then create it
Yes.
if you want to. And I'm assuming that this is exactly what you did with
Yes.
this. So because while it did have elements of other stories, it was so uniquely yours. So it just so in other words, because what I often do is, oh, this story that I think up has been told before, and so I'm not going to attempt it,
Yeah.
which is bad because, like, look what you did. You took,
Yes.
the elements of other things that inspired you and created this really interesting and captivating story. So that's a
Yeah.
lesson for anyone who's like, oh, no, it's been done.
I feel like there's so many different tropes and the whole hero's journey thing. Every movie that you watch follows the hero's journey or
Hmm.
some trope. And like Hallmark can make the same movie 1,000 times and people still watch it.
Right? What inspires you? What inspires you to create or to come up with certain characters? I know this is a big loaded question, but
I don't know. Maybe just my love of reading.
mhm.
Like I love picking up a new book, and I know I mentioned Kuntz before, but he has a way of making different characters. Like by the time you're done with the book, you feel like you know that person.
Yeah.
And I love characters like that. And like you were saying, you really resonated with Dawn.
Mhm.
So the fact that I know that I made a character like that for one other person just makes me so happy.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, I was so I honestly, I've not had that much fun reading a book in a long time. So, because it was just, I kept thinking this is fun. Like I'm having a good time because I want to keep, like I want to keep going to see what happens. And I liked the characters that were involved, and I liked the camaraderie that was being created between them. And again, no spoilers, but in that there was so much positivity out of what could be a really negative
Yes.
experience. So I thought that was really impressive, and it was a nice change, right? Because it could have been very dark the whole way through
Yes.
and very, dramatic, but there was always a levity to it that I felt was just refreshing.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yay. your partner, you talked about him being so supportive,
Yes.
and that was crucial to you even completing the task. So moving forward, is he encouraging you to continue to write and to continue to create?
Uh, yeah, he asked me if I was gonna work on anything else, but I'm kind of putting all that off until after the holidays.
Oh yeah, of course. So you started off with that short story and on KDP. And
Yes.
what were some of the lessons that you took away from that?
Um, how to format.
Oh yeah, big one. Hmm.
On Clear the Air, on the printed copy, it just starts paragraphs wherever it wants to. In the middle
Oh,
of a sentence, it'll just start a new paragraph for no reason. So I learned how to format uh like I don't know, change the page sizes and the wrap text and all of that. And it gave me a couple ideas on how to do my cover,
okay, good. Yeah, that's
but
excellent.
mostly it was just the fear of the first time publishing.
So work that out of your system, and then it's
Yeah.
like riding a bike. You're like, yeah, I could do this.
Yeah, like I've done it before, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a really great point to send out a tester or to put out a
Yeah,
tester. And again, not only to start building an audience, but to work out the kinks so that each time you go back, it's a little bit easier. Brilliant.
and also I know it's not the greatest story. It's a cute story, I like it, but my thought was if I put out this crappy short story, then everything I write after that is going to be an improvement.
So
So,
I like that train of thought. Um, Onto the marketing. So I know you said that you could, let me just grab this quote, that you felt that um, a more prominent social presence would benefit your sales, but that sales aren't that important to you. It's more about um, you just creating that book that you wanted to read, right? Which is really refreshing too, because people get caught up and caught up and caught up, like, oh, I
yeah,
got to do this, I got to do that. And so if you just create to create, then you've already satisfied your goal, which is
exactly.
lovely. It's lovely. Um, so, but you have done some really smart marketing with the bookmark. So, how did you come up with that idea? Explain it. And how did you come
I
up with that idea?
cannot tell you how I came up with it. It was just a spur of the moment um,
Oh,
thought that
good.
I had. If I can reach it, there we go. They're bookmarks that the front has the title and my name and a QR code that's shaped like a book. I don't know if you can
Yep.
see that.
Yep. Can do. Yeah.
And then on the back, it has the blurb. It's the same thing that's on the back of the back cover of the book. But when I sell the books, I put the bookmarks in it so that if they're reading it and they're talking to their friends and their friends are enjoying it, they can be like, oh, here, check the book out. And they just scan it with their phone and
So
read it.
smart. So smart. I love that idea. It's so smart. And then you had that book release. You mentioned it previously
Yes.
in the this video. And so I love that and I want you to set the scene for everybody who doesn't know what the release was, but I love that you incorporated two loves into it
Yes.
and it had this really grand evening of it. So,
My husband and quite a few of our friends are involved in the local music scene. So we had uh, a few of our friends' bands come and play live music, and my husband performed. And we held it at the McAlpine Meadery. I don't know if you know what mead is. It's like a
yep.
honey wine.
Yeah.
Oh, it is amazing.
Yeah,
I love
it's really big again, right? Like we
Oh,
have a whole bunch of local breweries that are now making mead and yeah, I haven't actually tried it, but I hear it's quite delightful.
yes. Um, but yeah, we had a great night and we even had my kids there.
Hmm.
So my toddlers up there dancing in front. Uh, my teenager ran the door for us.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
she was collecting money when people came in and It was a great night. I made a like painting of the title of the book with do monsters exist in our world with pine trees and stuff, and I auctioned that off.
No way.
We
So
did a raffle.
creative.
We did a raffle for it.
That's so creative.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Hmm. Yeah, I see. I love to hear that when people have this creative approach that's something different, right? Because it
Yeah.
gives people it's almost like you give people creative freedom and license to go and think outside the box for what they might want to do. So
Right.
if they had another kind of passion that they could, like if they had a beautiful garden, they could have a garden party with the book
Yes.
release or something like that. It's so great. Um, so you don't do a lot on social media,
No.
which you said, but you do have a Facebook page. Is it a page? Not a
Yes, I
group,
have a
right?
Facebook writer page.
And it's a.keller.author.
Yes.
Right. So people can check you out there. Um, so despite the fact that you haven't done any real marketing, like you haven't done a lot of and not a lot of social media presence, you had the great turnout at your book release.
Mhm.
You've still managed to sell probably by now over 60 books.
Yes.
So I would deem that a great success.
Yes,
How,
it's a huge success.
yeah. So how did some of these readers come to you? Have you found out or?
Um, well, a good portion of them have been friends and family, and then friends and family of the friends and family, other friends of theirs, and it just kind of spiraled. But I did have, uh, there are a couple Amazon sales,
Mhm.
and I think there was a review from someone that I have no idea who it was.
Well, that's
So
exciting.
yeah, that was just a complete stranger. So that was nice.
Wonderful. That's exciting. So it's picking up some
Yes.
momentum. Um, if you had to offer words of wisdom, let's say a newbie writer is coming to you and is asking you to share your wisdom now in having gone through the process of writing and editing and designing and publishing, what are some of the tips that you would provide?
Well, first of all, your first draft is going to suck.
Mm,
Like, do not, oh, I have to make this perfect. No.
just get it out.
Um, you should look at your first draft as a very detailed outline of how you want the rest of the book to go.
I like that train
Then
of thought.
when you rewrite it and you rewrite it multiple times, by the time you're done, it's going to be a completely different story.
Mhm.
And you'll eventually know when it's done. But some people tend to nitpick and overdo it and they keep going with it. Eventually, you have to put the pen down and you have to just release it. But
Yeah, you have to put it out there because
yeah,
because you could go back and back and back a zillion times. Oh, I don't like
oh
that. Oh, I
yeah,
should change that. Yeah. So
yeah,
it's interesting. So you just kind of know. You're like, okay, it's time. It's time
yeah.
to okay. And any other
Um,
tips, tricks, wisdom?
I know. I think a lot of people are intimidated. Like, oh, I don't have the money. I don't have the expertise. I don't know what I'm doing. And when it comes to like the money, I did not hire editors. I didn't hire a fancy cover designer. I didn't go all out because I just wanted to write the book.
Hmm.
And I wrote it and I published it for free on Amazon.
Perfect.
So I'm not trying to make a career out of it. I wanted to put it out there. And I want other people to know, if you want to write a book, just write it. Even if nobody else reads it, who cares? You got it out there.
Yeah, I love that.
You need to say.
Yeah, I love that. So I love this story about your daughter kind of being your book dealer
Yeah.
and the permission slips that were required. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Um, yeah, my 13-year-old has read Piquette Grove twice now.
Yeah.
And she was reading it at school, and one of the girls in her class said something about it, and she was explaining it to her teacher. I think one or two of her teachers bought it, and one of her classmates wanted it. So I had her write up a permission slip to let the parents know that there was stuff in there that was not, most people would not be okay with their 13-year-olds reading that.
Yeah. It's a
So
bit spicy. Yeah.
yeah, a little bit. But some people have different maturity levels. So
Yeah, it's not like it was I really appreciated the way you handled the lead up to it. So it wasn't always this like like ongoing thing. It was just
yes,
it led up to the one part, and then it was done. And
yes,
it was really, I thought it was really well presented, because sometimes it can be like overwhelming with
yeah.
those types of scenes, but it was really I thought it was really tastefully done too, and
Thank you.
quite natural, the progression of that relationship.
Yes.
um so especially for their age, right? It was
Yeah, you
actually,
you had the like hormonal like tension, but I don't know.
yeah, and it really painted Jason in quite a lovely light because of his restraint and
Yes.
that sort of thing, and it showed that he was way like mature beyond his years.
Yes.
But then there were also hints of impatience and again, I don't want to
I
spoil
mean,
anything, so
he was a teenage boy.
right, but you forget that because
Yes.
of the setting that he's in, the situation, and then you're like, oh yeah, like he is only, however,
Yeah.
he's 19.
19?
Yeah.
19, yeah.
And so and I think that makes the fact that Dawn has such respect for him more believable,
Yes.
because he
Yes.
earns it through his
He does.
maturity, and he just is another decent character. I really like the friendship of his crowd,
Yes.
that were where they were. I thought that was really well done, and you could really feel quite a bond amongst them.
A friend
And
of
then
mine called them the block boys.
yeah, and then the subsequent relationships that started happening too with the adults, and it was great. It was great. So your future projects, that's what I wanted to talk
Okay.
about. So you have two ideas that you're
Yes.
toying around with that you'll probably
Yes.
start after the holidays, like in the early next year, right? So, and one of them is sort of piggybacking off of the short story a little bit. So
Sort of.
sort of, yeah. So fill me in on those details.
Clear the Air is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella. Um,
Like mashed into one?
yeah.
Okay.
Uh, the prince is under a werewolf curse, so the king and queen set up a Cinderella style ball to find someone to break the curse.
Interesting. I like that twist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really loved the sorry, the medieval feel and the kings and queens and magic and all of that. So I have another idea that kind of flows off of that, and it's in the same like medieval fantasy genre.
Okay. Exciting.
Yes.
Super exciting. Yeah, I also love that
Yes. But it's
period of
really
time.
hard to get period pieces accurate enough. So it takes a lot of research.
A lot of research, but you can, a lot can be forgiven if it's sold as a fantasy, or
Fantasy. Yeah.
yeah, because then it's like, well, were there really magicians? Like you can kind of fudge
Yeah.
some of the things a little bit and make it sort of
Yeah.
an alternative or alternate universe, something. You can work around it, I think. But the good thing is that there is so much historical data from that period that
Yes.
you can look up the clothing, the food, now everything, the
Yes.
architecture and the climates, and so, but you're right, there is a lot of detail that has to be worked out.
Yeah.
So that one would take, I'm assuming, a little bit more time, but what about the second one?
The second one is a very loose sequel to Piquette Grove.
Okay.
It's also a supernatural suspense, but this one's way more heavily supernatural. Um, it wouldn't really tie into Piquette Grove until the very last chapter, or maybe the epilogue.
Okay.
So it would be a standalone novel, but at the very end, it creates a very loose tie-in with the city outside of
Interesting.
it. Yeah.
Okay, I like the sounds of that. And again, now that you've had the first uh, book done, printed out there in the world, would you follow the same technique that you did for Pickett Grove? Like,
I think they all,
that sort of hybrid
yeah.
pantser plotter type thing?
Well, this one is a little more adventure type, so it will take a lot more plotting
Hmm.
than Pickett Grove did, just because you have to get like they go on like an epic adventure through this land that they're not supposed to be in. So I have been looking into resources for like Dungeons and Dragons,
Okay, yeah.
how to like come up with the story and things like that. So
Yeah. There's really good online resources, and I've even seen some courses too. I'm sure you could do a free thing over or on YouTube, like just follow, some
yeah,
writing coaches, but about world building and how important it is
yes,
in the consistency and the things that you don't think about with world building. Like I always am wondering, my personal thing about new worlds is like what do they eat and
yeah,
like what do they do to make a living, like what kind of commerce do they have, like the weird things, do they go to the
yeah,
bathroom like everybody else, and what are their bathrooms like? So you don't think that you need to go to that level of detail, and you probably don't need to go to like
yeah,
this is how they go to the bathroom, but
yeah, like crazy.
yeah, but there are really specific sort of things that you need in place to make the world come to life,
Yeah,
right?
to make
And
it believable, like you
yeah,
feel like you're in it.
yeah,
Yeah,
and successfully suspend the reader's belief and get that buy-in from them. Like,
yeah,
oh yeah, I want to live in this world.
yeah.
So good luck. I don't think I would be able to achieve that. I'm too rooted in one way of thinking. So yeah, but you never know. But would you, in future, do you think that you would take any courses or things like that to continue to hone your craft, or are you gonna just go with your instinct, right? And that sort of
Right
thing.
now, my plan is to just kind of roll with it and learn from experience. Just the more you do it, the better you're gonna get.
Exactly.
But if it came up and if I had the funds or the time, then yeah, I could see myself taking a course or something down the line.
Yeah. Yeah. I found through personal experience, you can take too many courses where you start to get bogged down.
Yeah,
And there's so many rules that you're like, oh, but this one said this rule and this one said the complete opposite. So which rule is actually the right rule? And then you're like, oh, forget it, I can't do this.
well,
So
that's the problem. There's too many rules, but art is subjective.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
Yeah,
no one can tell you that you're doing your art wrong.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. And if that were the case, then all those great masters who, during the Renaissance period, who started with these different styles of painting
Yeah,
would have never done it, and then we would have never progressed to where we are today. So
right.
it's very true. Yeah, I like that even though there are these rules,
Yeah.
um
It's
how
just a guideline, loose
yeah,
guideline.
guideline, and then do you by by observing these guidelines, how much of the creative process do you sacrifice,
Yeah.
right? So I really admire someone who can write like you, who just does it and it doesn't think, because I'm constantly telling myself all sorts of things in the
Yeah.
background because I'm like, oh well, and it's just it you have to free yourself. I think that's
Yeah.
important. Yeah, and I really think what you said about the first draft is more of an the outline, even if you're not intentionally outlining, right?
Yeah.
So that first
It's
draft is
just a
the outline.
very detailed outline.
Hmm. And have you found through the process of having finished a novel that some stuff that you thought in the beginning would work really well just ended up completely taken out?
Yes. Um, the way that I had the story structured at first, just it didn't flow well enough. I don't know. It just, I had to go back and skim through quite a few of my books on my shelf before I was like, okay, this is how you're supposed to flow this. And
Okay, so you went to the, I'm pointing to my
yeah,
bookshelf, but you went to the masters, so to speak, to
I
figure
went to
out
the
how.
pros to find out what I was doing wrong, and also how to properly format dialogue.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
because dialogue is an art.
dialogue is a bitch.
And keeping it straight. Like, wait, who's talking again? And what's happening?
Yeah,
And does this person use this kind of language? Like getting it right, because everybody
yeah,
has a different way of speaking. And so
yes,
that's a big challenge too. And how to make the dialogue realistic and
yes,
true. And you had mentioned that one of your friends said, no, this one wouldn't say this.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
this is ridiculous. Take that out. So yeah, so that's good. So you do get inspired because I have noticed now since I've been working on certain projects that are not done and nowhere near completion, but that I too look to, I'm reading things more critically with a critical eye
yes,
and making notes or even just mental notes about, oh, I like the way that they constructed this, or the way they communicated
yeah,
this emotion or something like that. But I also find, and my question to you is that now having written and published, are you reading differently?
I don't know. I haven't read anything since I finished it. um, yeah, I've tried, and it's chaotic, and
Yeah.
I don't know if other writers are the same as me, but I get so immersed in the story while I'm writing it. I told my friends, like, I've spent the last year in this town. I'm sick of it. I'm putting it down. I'm tired of Piquette Grove. I don't want to be in that town anymore.
Yeah, I have some characters who've been, and I don't know if it was you and I that discussed this, but they've been with me since university, right? So I'm well out of, obviously, I'm well beyond university at this point. So we're talking, you know, I don't want to tell you how long, but anyway, and like I've done little things with them, but they've never really fit.
Yeah.
And so then they keep resurfacing, and I'm like, oh my God, it's you again. Like, didn't I
Yes.
put you to bed? And and I try to insert them here and there, but you get kind of fed up after a while. You're like, okay, I'm done. Like, why are you sticking around?
Yes.
Or why am
They
I?
become almost your multiple personalities. It's like, okay, you have to go.
Like, I'm done with you. Yeah, that's an excellent point too. That and how real it all can seem and how immersed one can become in their writing. And
Yes.
to the point where you may even, I don't know if you've experienced this, but where you've had a portion of the story that's not working, or you're like, oh, I don't know if this is realistic. And then you work it out subconsciously and you're like,
Yes.
oh, I know exactly what to do.
Yeah. I usually fill plot holes while I'm doing dishes.
Oh, so
Things
smart.
like that, just like staring off into space. When you're doing mindless tasks, you can just, everyone says, "Oh, why are you just zoning out?" I'm not. I'm writing. I promise.
Yeah, yeah.
I promise.
Yeah.
It's productive. It just looks like I'm doing nothing.
I used to I have a friend who we were writing together. He's since moved away. Like we're still in touch, but now he's in a completely different on a completely different continent. But and we would walk our dogs together and we would use that time to hash out these plot holes and like, wait, did
Yeah.
we write ourselves into a corner with that one? And how do we get out of it? And we would just use that time to,
Hmm.
it was productive. You're taking the dog out, or dogs in our case, we both
Yeah.
had two, and and being able to work out something that's
Yeah.
been bothersome. So I find a lot of the time that things come to me is when I'm driving, which is probably not the best. Um, or if I'm watching something on YouTube or wherever, that's not necessarily captivating, but it's sort of just filling in the background noise.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but great ideas come during those periods for me. I'm
Uh,
not sure.
Mine is I played this block puzzle game on my phone. And it takes like no brain power. It just cuts out the outside
Yeah.
stimulus to where I'm doing this, but my brain is way gone
Isn't
working
it
on other
amazing?
stuff.
Like the way the
Yeah.
brain works, the way creativity works, it's so
Yes.
amazing that you can just, yeah, like be doing all these things, but you're still working it all out in the
Mhm.
background. And that's what I always thought of. Like it's almost like my brain is compartmentalized. So, and I
Yes.
know we all have these brain centers that are responsible for different functions, but I feel like mine is the front end is my day to day, like here is my day to day. And all in the back, like behind the scenes, at the back of my head are all these characters, all these situations that are just working themselves out magically, and then they sort of just present themselves, and I'm like, thanks guys. Do whatever, thanks to the muse.
Yeah.
So last question, where can we find your book?
It is on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and digital.
Okay, great.
So you can get any version.
Yeah, and I'm gonna link it all. This is what all the YouTubers do. I'm gonna link it down below. So you don't have to go, you just have to link below. And also, is it okay if I put up your author page down
Yes,
wherever this
of
is going to be?
course.
Okay, great. So then people can reach out. And what else? So if you publish again, you'll have to let me know, because I
Oh,
need,
I definitely will.
yeah, I need to know if there's going to be more of this, and to read more of your writing, because yeah, it was quite captivating. So
Okay.
thank you. Oh, and the last thing I just wanted to touch on is about juggling motherhood and fulfilling your creative passion and your dreams. How did you manage to do that? I think this is going to resonate with a lot of people.
Um, like you said and like I said, if you want it, you just have to do it. You have to find a way. Like when I was breastfeeding and I was what I called nap trapped, where you couldn't move, I would
Yeah.
just write on my phone. Or there's voice to text options, and sometimes you're just gonna have to accept, like, okay, my kid is sick, it's not gonna work, I can't write today.
Right.
But
So
um
build in flexibility, it
yes,
sounds like, right?
yes. And I think it's necessary to give yourself a goal, but make it a realistic goal.
Right.
Like, if you're saying I want to write like 5,000 words a day, that's probably not going to happen. And then you're going to feel bad because, oh, I'm not meeting my goal.
Hmm.
So if you trick yourself, like, oh, I'm going to write 1,000 words every other day, if you get ahead, then yay, I'm ahead. Or if you meet that, then yay, dopamine. But also, that gives you leeway for, like, oh, the kid is sick, I can't write today, but I still have another day to get my writing in. Or
Hmm.
there's a doctor's appointment, or there's something at the school, or there's, the million things that come with being a mom.
Right. And so I guess you also have to just keep like pushing forward, because like you said, there's a million things that come up, and it's so easy to put yourself to the wayside, like your own personal goals or wants or
And you have to
even
give
needs.
yourself grace. Don't feel bad, like, oh, I don't have the energy to do it. So what? Kids take a lot of our energy, but if you don't write your book this year, you can write it next year. Or eventually your kid's going to be in school or grown up, or they will potty train, I promise. Eventually they do. But like, you just have to give yourself grace and give yourself time. Like, don't stress yourself out if you can't do it on the time frame that you want to.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, Amazon's not going anywhere.
Right.
So,
Definitely not.
um, would you ever consider entering, all those like short story contests, things like that? Would you ever consider doing a contest-based writing, or like the NaNoWriMo type of thing?
Yeah, that nano thing, if they would do it in any other month besides November, I would definitely do it. But they always hold that right at the beginning of chaos season.
Yeah, interesting, right? I
Like,
wonder
yeah,
why
we
that
have,
is.
I have no idea.
Huh. Maybe
Maybe
we should
it's,
start our own.
well, I kind of get it because during the winter, a lot of people kind of hunker down and they just sit around with their hot cocoa and write and all that in winter. But I, I don't know. There's too many holidays, too much chaos.
Yeah, like I would think it would be like a maybe February, March type of, that would probably be, well, maybe
Yeah,
not March because then it's spring break or March break, but January, February, like something like that would be a
yeah,
better time. I think we should start our own. That's
we
what I'm
should. We should.
and then
We'll
we'll
do
become
one in
famous for it.
January and then one in June, so we can go sit at the
Yeah,
park where it's nice and pretty.
right,
Yeah.
right. That's genius. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being my first. Thank you
Well, thank you.
for all of this. This is so fantastic. Once again, you can find all the details down below. And yeah, keep me updated on your future projects and
I
everything.
will.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
for doing this and for your new project for all the writers and
Thank
readers.
you. Thank
It's an
you. Yeah.
awesome, awesome
Oh,
idea. I love it.
thanks. I yeah, I hope good things come of it. So
Yes.
yeah, thank you.